guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the area and perimeter of 2D shapes. In this second installment of the 3-part series, we are going to discuss how to calculate the shaded areas of shapes that are given. Now, two things that you need to understand. In order to calculate the shaded areas of a shape, obviously you'll have to first calculate the areas of the shapes provided, and that would be obviously using the correct formula for the shapes given. Then secondly, you will have to subtract the areas from one another to obviously give you the answer for the shaded areas provided. Okay, so let's start off with the first shape, and then we'll kick it off and do a couple of shapes. Now, when I'm talking about a couple of shapes, I am looking at doing between 5 and 6 different shapes in this video. Okay, so first of all, we will be calculating a circle as well as a square. The shape is presented on the bottom right of the video, so we'll start with that. So first of all, they gave us the diameter of the shape. So the diameter, as you can see, is equal to 20 centimeters. Now, in order to calculate the area for the square, you obviously know that you need to multiply the length by the length. So your properties come into play in this regard. Okay? So, to calculate the square, we are going to do the following. And that would be the area is equal to the length times the length. Remember, all the sides are equal. We work with the length of the sides and not length and breadth. Then we carry on, so we say 20, obviously multiplied by 20. That would give us 400 centimeters squared. With that, if you don't know where the square comes from, there will be a link in the previous video, part 1 of this series, where you can just go and recheck and enrich your mind and your memory with regards to what I've discussed there. So, shape number 1 is discussed, it's calculated. Now we need to go and calculate the full circle. So the area for the circle will be as follows. So we'll then have A, which is equal to pi times radius squared. Obviously you'll use pi as is, but now because they gave you the diameter, we need to go and calculate the radius. So in order to calculate the radius, we need to say that the diameter needs to be divided by 2. So 20 divided by 2, and your radius is therefore equal to 10 centimeters. So we're going to use 10 centimeters here and square it right as we close the bracket. When we calculate it, remember last time in the previous video I showed you how to use the calculator, and we go and put everything in the calculator and it should give you 100 pi. We do not want to work with 100 pi, we actually want to work with the decimal, rounded off to 2 decimal places, so we'll get then 314,16 centimeters squared. So now you've got the area for the square as well as the area for the circle. Now, in order to calculate the shaded area, obviously the square was the shaded area, so we want to calculate this shaded area, so we're going to subtract the circle, which is inside the square, from the area of the square. So third thing that needs to be done is the subtraction part. So we're going to say square minus the circle. Okay, so therefore we will then have 400 centimeters squared minus the 314,16 centimeters squared, and that will then give you a total of, so 400 minus 314,16 will give you a total of 85,84 centimeters squared. Now, some of you will say that you do not know which one to subtract from which one. Please note that you'll never have a negative area. If you get a negative area, it means that you've subtracted wrong. So you always subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. And in that order, or that case, you will then get your shaded part. So the shaded part for the shape presented here on the right is 85.84 centimeters squared. Okay. Moving on to the next question. So our next question will also be presented. It's presented here at the bottom. It is a square with, or rather not a square, a rectangle with a circle in it. Okay? And then they tell us that the length of this rectangle is 60 millimeters and the breadth is 50 millimeters. So obviously two shapes, calculate the rectangle first, then we calculate the, the circle after that. So, rectangle first. So with the rectangle, we are going to use area equals length times breadth. Then we're going to say 60 times 50, and you will get an area of 3000 millimeters squared. So that is for the rectangle. Now for the circle, obviously in the shape, you are going to ask me, how do I get the diameter of the circle? So if you look at the shape on the bottom right here, you will see that the circle touches the top and the bottom of the rectangle, which means that the diameter of the circle is obviously the breadth of the rectangle. So the diameter is equal to 50 millimeters. We need the radius to calculate the area. So radius is equal to diameter divided by 2. So therefore we say 50 divided by 2, and that would give us 25 millimeters that we can work with. Okay. So calculating the area obviously is A equals pi times radius squared because it's a full circle. We will then say pi open bracket 25 squared, and if you put that into your calculator, you will get an answer of 625 pi. Okay? Now, you need to press the SD button because we want the answer rounded off to 2 decimals. So, it's going to be 1963,50 millimeters squared in this case. So that would be the area for the circle. Now we need to go and calculate the shaded area, so obviously you're going to subtract the small answer from the bigger answer. So remember, this is the first part, second part, the third part I'll do at the top here. So we're going to say a rectangle minus the circle, and that would obviously look as follows. So we'll say 3000 millimeters squared minus 1963,50 millimeters squared, and if you calculate all of that, you should get a total of 1036,50 millimeters squared. So the total shaded area would be 1036,5 millimeters squared. Okay. Moving on to the next shape. In this regard, we've got a square with 2 circles. Now, only one circle is shaded. So in this question, you will only work with the circles. Okay. So they tell us here that the rectangle is 16 centimeters. So the one side of the rectangle is 16 centimeters. Which means if the rectangle is equal to 16 centimeters, the one side, then the diameter is equal to 16 centimeters. Okay? Which then means that I need to divide this by 2 in order to get the radius. So d divided by 2, so it's 16 divided by 2, which will give me 8 centimeters. So the radius is 8 centimeters. Okay? So we're going to work with the smaller circle and we're going to work with the bigger circle. So what you'll also see is that from the center to the circumference, they tell you that the small circle as well as the big circle have the same basically diameters. So the bigger circle will be a total of 8 centimeters, but from the center to the smaller circle, which is not the shaded circle, from the center to that circle's circumference is 4 centimeters. Then from the center to the shaded circle circumference, it would be 8 centimeters. So small circle, that one's radius is equal to 4 centimeters. Big circle, the radius there is equal to 8 centimeters. Okay. When we calculate this, you're going to work with two circles. So we're going to work with the small circle first. So the area for the small circle would obviously be pi times radius squared, because it's a full circle. You don't have to half it. Then you say pi times 4, because you're working with a small circle. If you calculate that, you should get an answer of 16 pi, and that is then rounded off to 50,27 centimeters squared. So that would be the area for the small circle. Okay. Now we're going to work with the big circle. So the big circle would be obviously also pi times radius squared. So it would be pi, almost right, 16. So it should be 8, and then when we calculate that, you should get 64 pi, and if you go and get the decimal value, it would be 201,06 centimeters squared. Now, in order to calculate the shaded area, you need to subtract the small value from the big value. So we're going to subtract the small circle from the big circle. So it's big circle minus small circle. Okay? So it will be 201,06 minus 50,27 minus 50,27, and that will give us a total of 150,79 centimeters squared. And that is the shaded part. So first one was the small circle, second one big circle, third part obviously calculating the shaded part in this regard. Okay. Our next shape is a bit of a tricky one that we've got at the bottom right. The next shape has a semicircle, a quarter circle, as well as a rectangle in this, as you can see at the bottom right of the screen. Okay, so first things first, we need to calculate the area of the semicircle. Then we need to calculate the area of the rectangle, and then we need to calculate the space that the quarter circle takes up and subtract that from the rectangle, and when you add that to the amount of area left that the rectangle covers to the semicircle, you will then get the full total area that shape covers. Okay, so first of all, we're going to calculate for the semicircle. So first things first, semicircle. So for the semicircle, they give us a diameter of 6. We want to calculate the radius. So radius is obviously d divided by 2, so it will be 6 divided by 2. So r is therefore equal to 3 centimeters. Okay, so when we calculate the semicircle, remember it's not a full circle, so you are going to make use of the improvised, what do you call it, formula, the one where you say a half pi times radius squared. If you don't want to use that and you want to use the full circle formula, then you obviously need to know that your answer that you get at the end will have to be divided by 2. Okay, so the one I'm going to use is equal to half pi times radius squared. We will then do the following: a half pi open bracket 3 squared. The only thing that the half does is it basically takes your full circle area and it cuts it in half. So it basically already simplifies it to the area of a semicircle. You'll then get 9 over 2 pi, which you then simplify to 14,14 centimeters squared. Okay? Then we now need to go and calculate the area of the rectangle. So the rectangle is next. So for the rectangle, you're obviously going to say A is equal to length times breadth. The length of the rectangle I've got here is 6. Not 6, sorry. Obviously, if that part is missing, it's going to be 9. So it's going to be 9. And then 6 for the breadth. And 9 times 6 gives you 54. So the area for the total rectangle is 54 centimeters squared. Okay. Now we need to go and calculate the part of the quarter circle that's been removed from that shape. So let's go calculate the quarter circle. And the quarter circle's diameter is, or rather radius is 3. So to calculate the area of a quarter circle, a quarter pi times radius squared. Okay? So we're going to then say a quarter pi, and then that radius is 3 squared. With that, if we go in and calculate every single thing, we will get 9 over 4 pi, which will then be simplified to 7,07 centimeters squared. Now, in order to calculate the full area that is shaded on the shape over here, you need to add the half or semicircle to the rectangle because both of them are shaded, and then subtract the quarter circle because the 1/4 part or section of the rectangle has been removed. So to finalize this, I'm going to write at the bottom, you then say 14,14 plus 54 minus the 7,07. So you add the semicircle and the rectangle together because they're shaded, and then you subtract the non-shaded part from the answer. So when you go and calculate all of this, you will get an answer of the following. And that would be 61,07 centimeters squared is the total area of the shaded part of those shapes, or that shape put together. Okay? Our final question for this evening is a bit of a tricky one, as you can see at the bottom right of your screen. It is a circle with a arc, or rather a chord drawn into it. If you look at it, you need to understand that they tell you that where those two lines bisect, meaning where they cut one another, that is a right angle. Okay? So the very first thing that you need to do is find the area of the full circle as displayed at the bottom, the bottom right, and then go and calculate the area that is shaded. So let's start off with the full circle. So when we start off with the full circle, I just want to move up a bit. So this is the circle. For the circle they give you a diameter of 20. So we're going to calculate the radius by saying d divided by 2. So 20 divided by 2, and therefore the radius is equal to 10. And that would be centimeters. So calculating the area of the full circle should not be difficult, as you have seen this done many times now throughout this video as well as the previous video. So pi times radius squared, so pi times 10 squared, and that will give you a total area of 100 pi, and that would be simplified then to 314,16 centimeters squared. Okay. With that, you will now have to go and calculate the shaded area of this shape. Okay. Now to calculate the shaded area, the first thing that you need to do is to calculate the area of 3/4 of the circle. Okay, because there are 3/4 in the circle as displayed at the bottom here that has not been shaded. Okay, so we're going to calculate 3/4 of the circle. So 3/4 of the circle. Let's calculate that area. So A is equal to 3/4 pi times radius squared. Okay, and the reason why we say 3/4 is because we want to know what the area of 3/4 of the circle is. Okay, that would then be 3/4 pi times 10 squared, and that will give you a total area for the quarter circle of 75 pi. Simplified to a decimal of 235,62 centimeters squared. Okay. Now we've calculated 3/4 of it. Next thing that we need to do now is calculate the area of the triangle as represented on the shape. So the third thing, triangle, the area of the triangle. So to calculate the area of a triangle, obviously its area is equal to half the base times the height. So half the base would be 10, and the height will also be 10, because the triangle's height is from the center to the circumference of the circle, as well as the base is from the center to the circumference of the circle. So 10 times 10 is 100, divided by 2 gives me 50 centimeters squared. Now, if we add, if we take the 3/4 circle as well as the triangle and we subtract it from the full circle, you should get your shaded area. So we're going to say, therefore, 314,16 minus the 235, which is the 3/4 circle, 2 minus the 50, which is obviously the triangle, okay, will give us, so 314,16 minus the 235,62 minus 50 will give us a total shaded area of 28,54 centimeters squared in this regard. And that is how you calculate the shaded chord of that circle. Okay. Well guys, that is it for today. Please stay tuned for more videos. Part 3 will also come out soon with regards to area and perimeter of 2D shapes, where we are going to explain how to calculate the areas of shapes that are put together. So shapes that consist out of triangles and rectangles, for instance, circles and squares, and so on and so forth. Thank you for obviously growing the channel. We do appreciate it. Thank you for always viewing the content, and please get more of your friends as well as other people involved in growing the channel so that we can help you make a success out of what you are trying to achieve. Thanks once again. Until next time, have a good day. Bye bye.